Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, speaking in the Israeli parliament, has warned Hamas that there will be consequences that you cannot imagine if the dozens of hostages still held by militants are not released. As the situation intensifies, Palestinians in Gaza are hopeful that an Arab representatives meeting in Cairo will present a united front against US President Donald Trump's proposal to push Palestinians out of Gaza. The Arab League summit, convened by Egypt, seeks to offer an alternative plan that respects Palestinian rights and ensure Gaza remains habitable. Israeli forces have killed 2 Palestinians in southern Gaza amid an escalating humanitarian crisis following Israel's decision to cut off aid to the besieged enclave and backtrack on a ceasefire deal. International concern is mounting, with Canada, Germany, Spain and Turkey joining calls for Israel to lift its renewed blockade on humanitarian aid entering Gaza. Meanwhile, US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff plans to return to the region in the coming days, aiming to either extend the current ceasefire's first phase or move negotiations on to phase 2, according to a State Department spokesperson. Gaza's health ministry has reported over 48,000 Palestinian deaths and over 111,000 injured since the conflict began, while the government media office estimates the death toll at over 61,000, including thousands still missing under rubble. Joining us to discuss this topic, we first are joined by Lev Aran, who is a former coordinator of Israel-India Parliamentary Friendship League, who is joining us from Israel. Lev, thank you very much for being here. This impasse that we're seeing with the current ceasefire deal, of course, has ramifications. But in terms of the deal that the US put forward, how is the Israeli government planning for themselves to move forward with this situation, as aid not getting in and a concern over whether hostages will be released or not seems to be frustrating all sides in this situation?
As far as Netanyahu is concerned, even the first phase was a dictate by the Americans, by Donald Trump, let alone the second phase. He doesn't want the second phase. He wants, of course, the hostages back, but if he needs to pay with a second political phase, he will not do it. And also many Israelis see gleefully how Hamas, that was treated as a rock star in many capitals and also campuses in America, now they play a second fiddle in the emergency summit in Cairo. So as far as Israel is concerned, there is no American pressure for a second phase, and Hamas will have to comply with the first phase.
Absolutely. Staying with you, Lev Aran, looking at that first phase, it has of course stopped. Is there a feeling that this might return to an all-out conflict sooner rather than later, rather than the ceasefire being extended?
There is not much of an appetite of Netanyahu to go to a big war right now, because still he hopes that after the Cairo summit, the Palestinians, the Hamas, not the Palestinians, Hamas will understand they will have they have no choice but to go with the first phase. So I believe that Netanyahu believes that he can get more hostages via the first phase. This is like his this could be his political achievement, and he sees that in Cairo the Arab countries will have to give something to Trump, because he wants to relocate the Palestinians and Egyptians want to give an alternative plan. The alternative plan may be the sacrifice of Hamas in Gaza.
Lev Aran, there have been calls from countries across the world relating to the aid that has been blocked. The UN, of course, have said as well that the situation in Gaza is dire. Supplies, we know, are running low. Is there a responsibility on the Israeli government to make sure the people in Gaza get the aid they need, while also carrying out their aims, of course, of getting the hostages back and making sure Hamas don't launch another attack like they did on the 7th of October?
Israelis do not believe that the hunger in Gaza is connected to the aid. Israelis believe that over $1 billion Hamas got as a commission via the aid that Palestinians in Gaza got until now. Israelis saw how starved Israeli hostages are among healthy young Palestinians. So if we are speaking about the desi Israeli politics, there is no pressure on the government to give Palestinians any aid.
Also joining us to discuss this topic, we have Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who is a Middle East expert who's joining us from Singapore. Professor Gunaratne, thank you very much for being here. I want to build on what Lev just said there, relating to the situation of aid in Gaza. In your opinion, how important is it for the people who remain in a Gaza, which, as we know, is not in a state, and not in the state that it was before this conflict started? How can they hold out hope, given the signs that no aid will be coming in the immediate future, or has been over the last couple of days?
The Palestinian in Gaza has suffered significantly, and they want to ensure that this war stops. There is no support from the Palestinians for the continuity of war. They want the aid to come in, and they want their homes to be rebuilt. But at the same time, there isn't adequate pressure on Hamas to release the Israeli and the foreign hostages they are holding. The Arab countries that are now meeting in Cairo, they should very clearly understand that Hamas should be asked to dismantle their military capabilities so that the Palestinians can live in peace. If the Hamas is not going to dismantle their military capabilities, what is going to happen is that the war will continue. And of course, more Palestinians will die because Hamas will hide behind the Palestinian homes and Palestinian institutions. So what is central to understand is that there must be the cooperation and collaboration and partnership of the Arab nations, and they must exert pressure on Hamas to dismantle.
Professor Gunaratne, staying with you, I want to really hone in now on this meeting of Arab leaders that we've had in Cairo. In terms of the future of this conflict, the future of this impasse, how important do you think it is that all sides in this war and all allies in this war have discussions to try and end it? We've seen something, of course, in Europe similar, with arguments over who will be involved in peace negotiations, but it seems that Donald Trump has set out his plan. It seems that Israel, of course, are following on with what they're doing. But how important are the Arab leaders in formulating a lasting peace plan that can see Gaza either be rebuilt in whatever format and also see the hostages returned?
Arab leaders must insist on Hamas to release the hostages. It is a disgrace for those leaders if they are not going to compel Hamas to do so. And also, they know, those Arab leaders know very well that IDF, the Israelis, are going to strike and eliminate and fight, and the Palestinians are going to die if they are not going to do that. Israel is reaching a point, and the Americans are reaching a point. America under Trump is reaching a point where Trump has told Netanyahu, you can go ahead and eliminate Hamas. So the pressure today is on those Arab leaders. They must ask Hamas to release the hostages or war will resume. They must ask Hamas to dismantle their military capabilities, or else Israel will attack the Gaza area, and again war will resume. So Arab leaders have a huge responsibility.
Lev, Aaron, coming to you to end this discussion now. We've heard Benjamin Netanyahu's warnings towards Hamas. What do you think that will entail?
I think the talking is not that important. The more important thing is that the Arab countries will have to sacrifice Hamas they will have to sacrifice it, because otherwise Donald Trump's plan of relocation will become relevant again. So they will have to prove Trump that on one hand, they don't want the relocation. On the other hand, they do not support Hamas, even not as a second fiddle in Gaza. And the question, can they create some kind of solidarity between themselves? It is like a huge question.
Lev, Aaron, thank you very much for joining us and providing your insight. Also, thank you to Professor Rohan Gunaratne. We will, of course, bring you all of the updates from the Middle East as we get them. But we now move on. And the 97th Academy Awards took place at the Dolby Theatres in Los Angeles. All eyes were on Jacques Audiard's audacious musical Emilia Perez, as it was leading with 13 nominations. But it was the night for Sean Baker's Anora. The film took home 5 Oscars, including Best Actress, Best Director, Best Film, Best Original Screenplay and Best Film Editing. Here is a detailed report.
Mikey Madison won Best Actress for Anora, while Adrian Brody was awarded Best Actor for The Brutalist. Best Supporting Actress was taken home by Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. The list goes on with Best Supporting Actor, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, and Best Director was awarded to Sean Baker for Anora. Meanwhile, I'm Still Here secured the Best International Feature. The most nominated film of the night was Netflix's crime musical Emilia Perez, which had 13 nods, the most ever for a film not in the English language. The Best Original Song was taken home by El Mal for Emilia Perez. Meanwhile, the Susan Lucci of the film world, Warren lost the Oscar Sunday night after her 16th Best Original Song nomination. It was Warren's 8th consecutive nomination in the category. Ahead of this, the Oscars have faced criticism for skipping film clips in the supporting acting categories. The night started with a stunning, Broadway-esque opening, as Ariana Grande has delivered a powerful rendition of Over the Rainbow. Meanwhile, her co-star Cynthia Erivo has captivated the audience with her version of Home from the Wiz. The two have then come together for a duet of their film's theme song, Defying Gravity. The highlight of the event was Mikey Madison's winning speech, wherein she thanked her family.
To my incredible family, my mom and my dad and my sister and my little brother and my twin brother, Miles, thank you for being my best friend, not that you have a choice.
The night wrapped up with a tribute to Barbara Broccoli, and Michael G. Wilson gave a poignant farewell to the iconic James Bond legacy. Bureau Report, NewsX World.
Now for the latest from across the world of business. Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company, the world's largest chip maker, pledged $100 billion in fresh funds to build factories in the United States. TSMC Chief Executive Officer C.C. Wei joined Trump at the White House to unveil the company's vision for expanding a US footprint that got its start in 2020 during the president's first term. Trump said the move means the most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America. Prada's acquisition of Versace would create a more resilient luxury company, but reviving Versace could take years and hurt short-term profits, according to experts. Prada, after strong growth in 2024, seeks expansion, while Versace operates at a loss. The merger would challenge French luxury conglomerate's dominance. Versace requires restructuring due to past mismanagement. Despite this, the acquisition would drive growth, with Versace's 2025 revenue forecast at $810 million. Goldman Sachs has warned of downside risks to oil prices due to higher crude supply, weaker US activity and escalating tariffs. The bank predicts Brent oil at $78 and $73 per barrel for 2025-2026, with a range of $70 to $85. US West Texas Intermediate oil is expected to average $74. In a risk scenario with rising OPEC plus supply, Brent could fall to the low 60s by 2026, according to experts. The bank also sees risks to its 1.1 million barrels per day oil demand growth forecast for 2025. Switzerland's Lindt and Sprüngli reported slightly higher than expected full-year operating profit despite historically high cocoa prices. Cocoa is trading at around $8,734 per metric tonne in London. Analysts predict a tough 2025 for the chocolate industry due to unprecedented raw material costs. These costs are expected to drive further price hikes in the teens percentage. President Donald Trump moves ahead with 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports, saying time's up for a deal. China fires back with its own tariffs while Canada and Mexico prepare for swift retaliation. Tensions soar as America's top trade partners face steep new barriers.
President Donald Trump has said he is moving forward with 25% tariffs on goods imported from Canada and Mexico into the US, adding that time had run out to reach a deal.
On the tariffs, is there any room left for Canada and Mexico to make a deal before midnight? And should we expect those Chinese tariffs, the extra 10%, to take effect
tomorrow? No room
tomorrow?
left for Mexico or for Canada. No, the tariffs, they're all set. They go into effect tomorrow.
US stock markets sank in response to the measures, which he has threatened since earlier this year, and said would now go into effect on Tuesday. Trump also inked an order Monday to increase a previously imposed 10% tariff on China to 20%, piling atop existing levies on various Chinese goods. This leaves all three of America's top 3 trade partners facing significantly higher barriers than just a few weeks ago. China responded immediately after the deadline, announcing additional tariffs of 10%, 15% on certain US imports from March 10th, and a series of new export restrictions for designated US entities, Canada and Mexico, which have enjoyed a virtually tariff-free trading relationship with the US for 3 decades, were poised to immediately retaliate against their longtime ally. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Ottawa would respond with immediate 25% tariffs on $20.7 billion worth of US imports, and another $86.2 billion if Trump's tariffs were still in place in 21 days. He said previously that Canada would target American beer, wine, bourbon, home appliances, and Florida orange juice.
The facts establish very clearly that Canada is not an issue in terms of source of illegal fentanyl into the United States. We had about less than 1% when we first started talking about this many months ago. That number is significantly lower than that, even now. But we all know the American administration will make its own choices in terms of tariffs. We will continue to work to ensure, to do everything we can to make sure that there are no tariffs on Tuesday. But if ever there were tariffs on Tuesday, as we have all seen, as we were ready to do last time, we will have a strong, unequivocal, and proportional response as Canadians expect.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum was expected to announce her response during a morning news conference in Mexico City on Tuesday, the country's economy ministry said. Bureau Report, NewsX World.
Let's now take a look at the latest updates coming in from across the Indo-Pacific region. North Korea has slammed the United States for political and military provocations. This comes as a US Navy aircraft carrier visited the South Korean port of Busan. Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, stated that as soon as its new administration appeared this year, the US has stepped up the political and military provocations against North Korea. She later added, if the US continued their demonstrations, we will be naturally compelled to renew its records in the exercise of strategic deterrence. A heavily populated stretch of Australia's eastern coast prepares for a tropical cyclone that could be the most powerful in 50 years. Cyclone Alfred is swirling around 550 kilometres east of the major city Brisbane, with models showing it veering towards the mainland later in the day. The Bureau of Meteorology forecaster Dean Narramore said the storm was likely to cross the coast, striking land between metropolitan Brisbane and tourist haven Sunshine Coast. A Philippine Air Force fighter jet with 2 pilots on board has gone missing during a night combat assault. The assault was in support of ground forces who were battling insurgents in a southern province of the country. The FA-50 jet lost communication with other Air Force aircraft around midnight during the tactical mission before reaching a target area. Officials say that they have started an extensive search and hope to find the aircraft and pilots soon. A North Korean soldier captured by Ukraine has pleaded to live a normal life after moving to South Korea. This comes after Seoul vowed to offer citizenship to troops from Pyongyang. In January, Seoul's National Intelligence Service confirmed that the Ukrainian military had captured 2 of around 10,000 North Korean soldiers sent to Europe to fight. It's estimated that the troops were sent by Kim Jong-un to fight for Moscow in their war against Kyiv. South Korean lawmaker Yoo Yong-won said that he was able to meet the 2 soldiers who remain in Ukrainian custody. The moment I faced the 2 young prisoners, I was overwhelmed with emotions and an innate sense of empathy, said Yoo in a press conference. That is all we have time for, but we'll continue bringing you more of the latest international news very soon.